I've worked the overnight shift at the County 911 Dispatch Center for almost 2 years. People usually imagine the job is stressful because of the emergencies. They're right, but that's not the part that bothers you after you've been doing it long enough. You get used to people screaming. You get used to hearing car crashes, domestic arguments, medical emergencies, break-ins, fires. You learn how to keep your voice calm when the person on the other end is falling apart. What you don't get used to are the calls that shouldn't exist. My name is Ethan Cole, and this happened on a Tuesday night in October. It was 2:17 in the morning. The dispatch floor was almost empty. 3 operators were working the overnight shift with me, but 2 were on their breaks and the 3rd was handling a medical call on the other side of the room. Outside, rain was hitting the windows hard enough that I could barely see the parking lot. I remember looking at the clock above my monitor. 2:17 a.m. Then my headset beeped. Incoming 911 call. I pressed the button. 911. What's the location of your emergency? For several seconds, there was nothing. No breathing. No background noise. Just static. I repeated myself. 911. What's the location of your emergency? Then I heard a woman breathing. She sounded terrified. Not crying. Not screaming. Just breathing like she was trying very hard not to make a sound. Finally, she whispered, "Please." I straightened in my chair. "Ma'am, I need your location." There was a long pause. Then she gave me an address. I typed it into the system and immediately stopped. I knew that address. Everyone in our county did. It was an old house on Miller Road, a 2-story wooden house that had burned down 12 years earlier. There was nothing there anymore, just an empty lot surrounded by trees. I looked at the address on my screen again. 418 Miller Road. I thought maybe I'd misheard her. "Ma'am, can you repeat the address?" She whispered it again. 418 Miller Road. I stared at the monitor. "Are you currently inside the residence?" "Yes." My hands stopped moving. I looked toward the other dispatcher across the room. He was still talking to someone. I turned back to the call. "Ma'am, I need you to listen carefully. There shouldn't be a residence at that address." Silence. Then she whispered, "I know." A chill moved across my shoulders. "Are you injured?" "No." "Is anyone else there?" Another pause. Then, "He's here." I immediately began entering the call. "Who is there with you?" The woman's breathing became faster. "I don't know." I heard something in the background. A faint sound, like footsteps, slow footsteps, coming closer. I asked, "Ma'am, can you hide somewhere safe?" She whispered, "I'm already hiding." "Where?" Silence. Then she said something that made absolutely no sense. "I'm under the stairs." I looked at the map on my monitor. There was no house, no stairs, nothing, just an empty lot. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line. We're going to send officers to your location." The woman suddenly became frantic. "No!" I pulled the headset slightly away from my ear. "Ma'am, don't send them." "Why?" Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Because they already came." I froze. "What do you mean?" I heard a loud noise in the background. Bang. The woman gasped. Then another. Bang. Something was hitting the door. She started crying. "He's found me." I asked, "Who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Please don't let him hear you." I looked around the dispatch room. Everyone else was busy. I lowered my voice. "Ma'am, I'm right here. I'm listening." She took a shaky breath. Then she said, "What's your name?" I hesitated. "Ma'am, this is a 911 emergency line." "What's your name?" There was something strange about the way she asked, like she already knew the answer. I finally said, "Ethan." The line went completely silent. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then the woman whispered, "Ethan." Her voice changed. It sounded calmer now, almost relieved. "You're finally answering." I felt my stomach drop. "What?" Before she could respond, another voice came through the phone. A child's voice, a little girl. She whispered, "Ethan, Don't let him open the basement door. Then the call disconnected. I immediately looked at the clock. 2:19 a.m. I removed my headset. My supervisor looked over. Everything okay? I stared at him. Can you check something for me? What? I pointed toward my monitor. 418 Miller Road. His expression changed. He didn't even look at the screen. Instead, he asked, "Why?" "Because I just received a 911 call from there." He slowly stood up. "Ethan." "What?" He walked over to my station. Then he looked at the address. His face went completely pale. He whispered, "That's impossible." I nodded. "I know." He stared at the screen for several seconds. Then he said something I'll never forget. "That house burned down 12 years ago." And somewhere deep inside the dispatch center, my headset beeped again. Incoming 911 call. 418 Miller Road. The second call came through before I could even put my headset back on. Incoming 911 call. The same address appeared on my screen. 418 Miller Road. I looked at my supervisor, Mark, and he immediately shook his head. "Don't answer it." I stared at him. "What? Don't." The phone kept ringing in my headset. I looked at the other dispatchers. Nobody seemed to notice it. The call timer kept counting. 003, 004, 005. Finally, Mark reached over and disconnected the line. The ringing stopped. I took off my headset. "Why did you do that?" Mark didn't answer. He walked toward the small office behind the dispatch floor. "Come with me." I followed. He closed the office door behind us and lowered the blinds. Then he looked at me. "Tell me exactly what you heard." I repeated everything. The woman, the footsteps, the little girl, and the last thing she said. "Don't let him open the basement door." Mark listened without interrupting. When I finished, he remained silent for several seconds. Then he asked, "Did she give you her name?" "No." "Did you ask?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "She asked for my name." Mark's expression changed. "What did you tell her?" "Ethan." He closed his eyes. "That's bad." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Why?" He walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out an old folder. It was covered in dust. The label read, 418 Miller Road, fire/2014. He placed it on the desk. "That house didn't burn down 12 years ago." I stared at him. "Then when?" 11 years ago." He opened the folder. October 17th, 2015. I looked at the date. "That's 11 years." "Exactly." He pulled out a photograph. It showed the house before the fire. 2 stories, white wooden siding, a small porch, and 3 people standing in front. A man, a woman, and a little girl. The girl couldn't have been older than 9. Mark tapped the photograph. This was the Miller family. I looked at the girl. Who was she? Emily. I felt cold. The little girl's voice from the call came back to me. "Ethan, don't let him open the basement door." I looked at Mark. "Did Emily die?" He nodded. "Her parents did too. All 3. According to the report." I looked at the photograph again. "Then why was someone calling from the house?" Mark didn't answer. Instead, he took out another sheet. "The fire started at 2:17 a.m. I looked at him. "What?" "That's the official time." My eyes moved to the wall clock outside the office. 2:23 a.m. Mark continued. "Firefighters arrived 6 minutes after the first emergency call." "Who made that call?" He stared at me. "That's the problem." I waited. There was no recorded caller. I frowned. "What?" The dispatch log shows a 911 call came from 418 Miller Road at exactly 2:17 a.m. My stomach tightened. But the audio file is empty. I remembered the static on my call. The breathing. The woman's voice. I whispered, "Maybe it wasn't empty." Mark looked at me. "That's what I was afraid you'd say." He closed the folder. "Listen to me, Ethan. Whatever happened tonight, you don't talk about it." "Why?" "Because this isn't the first time." The room suddenly felt smaller. "What do you mean?" Mark looked toward the blinds. "Every few years, Someone receives a call from that address. Who? Night shift dispatchers. I stared at him. How many? He didn't answer. Mark. He finally said. 4. I felt my mouth go dry. What happened to them? The first transferred departments. The second quit. The third disappeared. And the fourth. Mark looked directly at me. You're looking at his replacement. I couldn't speak. Then my headset beeped from outside the office. Mark's face changed. We both looked toward the door. Another incoming call. I could hear the faint automated announcement through the wall. 911 emergency call. Then the address. 418 Miller Road. Mark whispered, "Don't answer it." The ringing continued. 1 ring. 2. 3. Then it stopped. Silence. I let out a breath. Then my personal phone vibrated inside my pocket. Pulled it out. Unknown number. 1 new text message. I opened it. There was only 1 sentence. "You shouldn't have told Mark your name." I slowly looked up. Mark was standing across from me. He hadn't seen the message. But behind him, the office door was slightly open. And through the gap, I could see my empty dispatch station. My headset was sitting on the desk. The call light was still blinking. 418 Miller Road. Then I heard a woman's voice coming through the headset. Even from across the room, I could hear her clearly. "Ethan." Pause. Then, "He's inside the dispatch center now." I didn't move. For a few seconds, neither did Mark. We both stood inside the office, staring through the narrow gap in the door. My headset was still sitting on the desk outside. The call light blinked. 418 Miller Road. Then the woman's voice came through again. "Ethan." I felt every muscle in my body tighten. Mark reached over and slowly closed the office door. He locked it. Then he turned to me. "Don't answer that call. What about the other dispatchers? They're not hearing it." I looked at him. "What?" Mark pointed toward the glass window. Across the dispatch floor, 2 operators were working normally. One was typing. The other was speaking into his headset. Neither of them reacted to the voice. I could hear it. Mark could hear it. But apparently nobody else could. Then my phone vibrated again. Another text. "He's walking toward you." I looked at the office door. Nothing. Then came 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Mark stepped backward. His face had gone completely pale. "Don't open it." I whispered, "Who's outside?" He didn't answer. Another knock. This time harder. Bang. The glass in the office door shook. I stepped away. Then a voice came from the other side. A man's voice. Calm. Almost friendly. "Mark." My supervisor froze. The voice continued. "It's me." Mark stared at the door. I whispered, "Who is that?" He looked at me. "Don't speak." The man outside knocked again. "Mark." "Open the door." Mark's hands were shaking. The voice sounded familiar. I could see it in his face. He knew who it was. "Who is it?" Mark finally whispered, "Tom." "Who's Tom?" "The dispatcher who disappeared." My stomach dropped. The voice outside laughed quietly. "You remember me?" Mark backed away from the door. "No. You promised you'd answer the next time." Mark looked at me. "Don't listen." The voice became louder. "Ethan." I felt a cold sensation move through my chest. It knew my name. "You answered the first call." I didn't say anything. "Now answer the second." The office lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out. The dispatch floor outside remained brightly lit. I could see everyone through the glass. Nobody noticed. Mark grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." "How?" He pointed toward the emergency exit. We moved quietly, but before we reached it, my headset outside suddenly stopped blinking. The call had ended. I breathed out. Then Mark's desk phone rang. He stopped. The screen showed, "Unknown caller." He didn't answer. It rang again, then again. Finally, the display changed. Incoming from 418 Miller Road. Mark slowly picked up the phone. I grabbed his wrist. "Don't." He looked at me. Then the phone answered itself. a woman's voice came through. "He's downstairs." Mark immediately dropped the receiver. "Where?" The woman continued. "He's looking for Ethan." I felt my heart pounding. Mark whispered, "Who?" There was a long silence. Then, "You already know." The line went dead. I looked at Mark. "What does she mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward a cabinet beside his desk. He unlocked it. Inside were several old dispatch recordings. He pulled out a small black cassette. The label read, October 17th, 2015, 2:17 a.m. He held it in his hand. "This is the original call." I stared at it. "You said the recording was empty." "It was." "Then what's on that tape?" Mark looked at me. "Nothing." "Then why keep it?" He hesitated. "Because someone wrote something on the back." He turned the cassette over. Written in black marker were 4 words. "He will call again." I stared at it. "Who?" Mark didn't answer. He put the cassette into an old player. The machine clicked. Static filled the office. Then, a woman's breathing. The same breathing I'd heard earlier. My stomach tightened. Mark stared at the cassette player. The woman whispered, "Please." Then came the same words from the call I'd received. "I'm under the stairs." I looked at Mark. "It's the same recording." He nodded. Then something changed. The woman's voice became clearer. "Please don't let him open the basement door." I leaned closer. Then I heard something I'd never heard during my call. A man's voice in the background. Very faint. Almost impossible to understand. Mark increased the volume. The voice became clearer. It said, "She's not under the stairs." I felt a chill run down my spine. The woman screamed. The tape suddenly distorted. Then the man's voice whispered, "She's inside the dispatcher." The cassette stopped. I stared at Mark. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer, because at that exact moment, one of the dispatchers outside screamed. We both turned toward the glass. The entire dispatch floor had gone silent. Every monitor was showing the same thing. Every screen, every computer, every terminal. They all displayed one address, 418 Miller Road. Then the lights above us flickered, and from the hallway outside the office, we heard footsteps, slow, wet, coming toward the door. Mark grabbed my shoulder. "Ethan." "What?" He stared at the door. "Whatever comes through that door." He swallowed. "Don't let it say your name." The footsteps stopped outside the office. Neither of us moved. Mark kept his hand on my shoulder. His fingers were trembling. Then the handle slowly turned. Once, twice. The lock held. A man's voice came from the hallway. "Mark." I looked at him. He didn't answer. The voice came again. "You know who I am." Mark closed his eyes. Then the voice changed. It became a woman's voice. "Ethan?" I felt my stomach drop. Mark immediately looked at me. "Don't answer." The voice came closer. "Ethan Cole." I said nothing. The hallway went silent. Then something scratched across the office door. Slowly, from top to bottom. Screech. I stepped backward. Mark grabbed the old cassette from the desk. "We need to go." "Where?" "Records." "Why?" "Because there's something I didn't tell you." He unlocked the emergency exit and pulled it open. We slipped into the hallway. The footsteps were gone. The dispatch floor was still frozen. Every monitor displayed the same address, 418 Miller Road. Nobody seemed to notice. I looked at the other dispatchers. "Why aren't they reacting?" Mark whispered, "They can't see it." "What?" "They're seeing their normal screens." I looked again. One dispatcher was typing. Another was talking to a caller. Everything appeared normal to them. But every few seconds, I could hear the woman's breathing through my headset, even though I wasn't wearing it. We hurried toward the records room. It was located at the far end of the building. Mark unlocked the door. Inside were shelves filled with decades of emergency reports. He turned on the light, then immediately walked to a shelf marked 2015 Fire/Structure. He pulled out a thick folder. I opened it. The first page was the official incident report. Date, October 17th, 2015. Time of first emergency call, 2:17 a.m. Location, 418 Miller Road. Cause, undetermined. I looked at the next page. 3 victims. Richard Miller, age 42. Karen Miller, age 39. Emily Miller, age 9. I turned the page. Something was wrong. The report said firefighters had found the bodies of Richard and Karen inside the upstairs bedroom. But Emily's body wasn't found upstairs. I looked at the next line. My heart started beating faster. Possible remains located beneath the staircase. I looked at Mark. Possible. He nodded. The fire department never confirmed they were hers. I read the rest. The basement had collapsed during the fire. The area beneath the stairs couldn't be safely searched until the following morning. When investigators returned, there were no remains, no bones, no clothing, nothing. Emily was officially declared dead anyway. I stared at the page. Why? Mark didn't answer. I turned to the final section of the report. There was a handwritten note, different handwriting, written in blue ink. Do not search the basement after 2:17 a.m. I looked at Mark. Who wrote this? He shook his head. I don't know. Then why is it in the official report? It shouldn't be. I turned the page. There was another note. This one was written in red. The girl was still alive when the house burned. I felt cold. Mark, I know. You said everyone died. That's what they told us. Who? Mark looked at me. The firefighters. He pulled out another folder. This one was much thinner. The label read, Fire Department, Private Statement. Inside was a single handwritten statement from a firefighter named Thomas Reed. I started reading. I heard a child screaming beneath the stairs. My breathing stopped. The statement continued. We tried to reach her. The floor collapsed. I heard her again. She was still alive. I looked at Mark. Why wasn't she rescued? He stared at the floor. Because something happened. What? He didn't answer. I kept reading. At 2:17 a.m., the screaming stopped. Then, someone else started screaming. My eyes moved down the page. The final sentence was underlined 3 times. It wasn't Emily's voice anymore. I dropped the paper. What does that mean? Mark whispered. That's why the house was never demolished. I stared at him. Wait, what? The county tried. Then why is it still there? Mark looked at me. It isn't. I felt confused. But I saw it. So did I. He pointed toward the report. That's the problem. Before I could respond, the records room lights flickered. Once, twice. Then every shelf seemed to become darker. A sound came from behind us. A child's voice. Very quiet. Mr. Cole? I turned. Nothing. Mark grabbed my arm. Don't. The voice came again. Mr. Cole. This time it sounded closer. I slowly looked toward the bottom of the nearest shelf. A small photograph was lying on the floor. I picked it up. It showed the Miller family standing outside their house. Richard, Karen, Emily, and behind them stood another person, a young man. I recognized him immediately. I looked at Mark. Who is that? Mark stared at the photograph. His face lost all color. That's Tom. The dispatcher? Mark nodded. But he was working here in 2015. Yes. I looked at the photograph again. The date was printed beneath it. October 16th, 2015. One day before the fire, Tom was standing beside Emily. His hand rested on her shoulder, and Emily was looking directly at the camera. Her expression was terrified. On the back of the photograph was a message. For words. He answered her first. Then the records room phone rang. There was only one phone in the room. It hadn't been connected for years. I stared at it. It rang again. Mark whispered, "Don't." The phone rang a third time. I picked it up. A little girl's voice whispered, "Mr. Cole." Couldn't breathe. Then she said, "I'm not under the stairs anymore." Pause. And then, "I'm under your desk." I slowly looked toward the floor. There was nothing there. Then I heard scratching beneath my feet. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something was underneath the records room floor, and it was trying to get out. The scratching beneath my feet continued. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I couldn't move. Mark stared at the floor. Don't look down. I swallowed. Why? Because if it's what I think it is. He stopped. The scratching suddenly became louder. Scratch. Something struck the underside of the floor. Thump. The old shelves rattled. Then everything went silent. I slowly lowered the phone. The little girl's voice was still in my head. I'm not under the stairs anymore. Mark grabbed the photograph from my hand. Come on. Where? Out. We hurried toward the door. But before Mark could open it, the phone rang again. He froze. The old disconnected phone. Ring, ring, ring. I stared at it. Mark whispered, "Don't answer." The ringing stopped. Then the phone rang again. This time, my personal phone vibrated. Unknown number. A message appeared. She wants you to find her. Another message arrived. Before he does, I looked at Mark. Who is he? Mark didn't answer. Mark, he finally whispered. The thing that came out of the fire. The records room suddenly felt freezing. What thing? Mark looked toward the floor. I don't know. You obviously know something. I know what Thomas told me. Then tell me. Mark hesitated. Thomas said the fire wasn't an accident. I stared at him. What? He said someone started it. Who? Emily. I shook my head. She's 9. I know. You're saying a 9-year-old burned down her own house? No. Mark looked terrified. I'm saying she tried to burn something else. I waited. He continued. Something that was already inside. The lights flickered. Then the records room door slowly opened by itself. Beyond it was the dark hallway. Mark grabbed my arm. Go! We ran. We reached the dispatch floor. Everything looked normal again. The other operators were still working. Nobody seemed to realize we'd been gone. Mark went straight to his station. I followed. What are you doing? Checking the old call records. He opened the emergency database. I stood beside him. He searched. 418 Miller Road. Hundreds of records appeared. Most were ordinary property records. Then we found something. A series of emergency calls. All from the same address. 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Every call had the same timestamp. 2:17 a.m. I stared at the screen. Why didn't I know about these? Because they're restricted. Why? Mark clicked the first record. The audio file was missing. The second, missing. Third, missing. Every single recording was gone. Then he opened the 2023 report. There was a transcript. Only one sentence. She's still waiting. The 2025 report had 2 sentences. She knows his name. And don't let Ethan answer. I stared at the screen. My blood ran cold. That was last year. Mark nodded. Yes. Then why didn't anyone tell me? He looked at me. Because you weren't supposed to be here. What? He opened my employee record. I stared at the screen. My hiring date was displayed. October 16th, 2025. Exactly 1 year after the previous 418 Miller Road call. I looked at Mark. You hired me because of this? He didn't answer. Mark. He finally said, we needed someone new. Why? Because the last dispatcher quit. Who? Mark looked at me. Tom. I felt a cold sensation run through my chest. But Tom disappeared in 2015. That's what everyone thinks. He opened another file. A personnel photograph appeared. Thomas Reed. Same man from the photograph. Underneath it, employed 2015 to 2025. I stared at the screen. That's impossible. He worked here for 10 years. Then why did you say he disappeared? Because he did. When? Last year. I couldn't speak. Mark continued. He received the same call. The 418 call? Yes. What happened? He answered. And then, Mark looked at me. After that, he started receiving calls from himself. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Every night. Mark leaned closer. At 2:17 a.m. His own voice would call the dispatch center. What did it say? Mark looked toward the empty headset on his desk. He said he was trapped inside the house. I stared at him. Was he? We sent officers. And they found nothing. Then where did he go? Mark shook his head. We don't know. I looked at the photograph of Emily. Something about her face bothered me. She didn't look like a dead child. She looked like someone who was waiting. I zoomed in. There was something written on the bottom of the photograph. A tiny handwritten note. I hadn't noticed it before. I read it aloud. Emily was never the victim. Mark immediately closed the file. Don't. Why? Because you don't want to know. I opened it again. Tell me. Mark looked at me, then finally said, Emily was the only person who survived the fire. Silence. I stared at him. But the report said. The report was changed. By who? Mark didn't answer. Who changed it? He looked toward the clock. 2:16 a.m. His face suddenly went pale. Ethan. What? He pointed at the clock. 1 minute. I didn't understand. 1 minute until what? He whispered. The call. The clock changed. 2:17 a.m. Every phone on the dispatch floor began ringing simultaneously. Every computer screen went black. Then one sentence appeared across all of them. Emily Miller. Incoming 911 call. My headset beeped. I didn't touch it. It answered by itself. A little girl's voice whispered, Mr. Cole. I closed my eyes. Then she said, I finally found you. A second voice came through the headset. A man's voice. My voice. Don't listen to her. Then Emily whispered, He's lying. And somewhere beneath the dispatch floor, something started scratching again. The voice on my headset went silent. For a few seconds, nobody on the dispatch floor moved. Every monitor was still displaying the same message. Emily Miller. Incoming 911 call. Then the screen in front of me changed. The message disappeared. A new line appeared. Caller, unknown. I stared at it. The call timer started counting. 001, 002, 003. I hadn't touched anything. Mark reached for the keyboard. Don't answer it. I didn't. The timer continued. 007. Then the headset spoke. A little girl's voice. Mr. Cole. I swallowed. Emily? Mark immediately looked at me. The girl giggled softly. You remembered my name. I need you to tell me where you are. Pause. Then, under the house. I looked at Mark. Which house? She didn't answer. Instead, another voice came through. My voice. Exactly my voice. Don't trust her. I pulled the headset away from my ear. The other dispatchers finally noticed something was wrong. One of them stood up. Ethan? I couldn't answer. The voice continued. She's not Emily. The little girl whispered. He's lying. Then the line went dead. The call timer disappeared. The monitors returned to normal. For several seconds, the entire dispatch room was silent. Then one of the other operators asked, What the hell was that? Mark looked at me. Nobody says anything. He walked toward the main door. Where are you going? To the records room. I'll come with you. No. He stopped. Ethan, listen to me. You know something. I know enough. No. I stood up. You've known about this since before I started working here. Mark looked away. You hired me because you needed someone to answer that call. He didn't deny it. I felt anger rising. What happens when I answer? Mark finally looked at me. You become part of it. What does that mean? You stop knowing which memories belong to you. I thought about the strange photographs. The other Daniel. Thomas. Emily. The house. My own voice. I whispered, Is that what happened to Tom? Mark nodded. Yes. What happened to Emily? He hesitated. We don't know. Then why does she keep calling? Because she's trapped. By what? Mark's voice dropped. By the person who answered before you. I frowned. Tom. No. He looked directly at me. Someone before Tom. My stomach tightened. Who? Mark didn't answer. Then the emergency lights came on. The entire building was suddenly bathed in red. A siren began sounding somewhere outside. One of the dispatchers ran toward the window. There's a fire. I turned. Smoke was visible outside. Not from the street. From the direction of the old Miller property. Mark stared through the glass. His face went pale. Ethan. What? The house. I looked outside. For the first time that night, for 18 Miller Road wasn't an empty lot. The house was there, standing exactly as it had looked in the old photograph. 2 stories, white wooden siding, porch, and flames coming from the upstairs windows. Couldn't breathe. That's impossible. Mark whispered. It's happening again. A dispatcher grabbed the emergency radio. Do we have a fire unit responding? Before anyone could answer, my headset beeped. I didn't touch it. The call answered itself. Emily's voice whispered, Mr. Cole. I stared at the burning house. Emily? He's here. Who? She began crying. The man who started the fire. I looked toward Mark. He was staring at me. Then Emily whispered, He's standing behind you. I slowly turned around. Nobody was there. Then the dispatch center door opened. A man walked inside. He was wearing an old firefighter uniform. His clothes were soaked. His face was covered in soot. He looked directly at me. Then he said, Ethan Cole. I couldn't speak. He smiled. I've been trying to reach you for 11 years. Then I recognized him. It was the man from the photograph. Thomas Reed, the dispatcher who disappeared. But he looked exactly the same as he had in 2015. And before I could ask him how that was possible, the fire alarm stopped. The burning house disappeared from the window. The firefighter standing in front of me disappeared too. Everyone on the dispatch floor looked confused. One of them asked, What just happened? I couldn't answer, because my headset was still connected. Emily was whispering, Now you know where he went. I looked toward the empty doorway. Then she added, But you still don't know where I am. The line went dead, and on my monitor, a new address appeared. Not 418 Miller Road. My home address. My home address was sitting on the monitor. I stared at it, trying to convince myself that I had read it wrong. But I hadn't. It was my exact address. The same address I'd lived at for almost 3 years. Mark walked toward my station. What is it? I pointed at the screen. He stopped. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. That's your house. Yes. He didn't say anything. Then the system automatically opened a new incident report. Call type: 911 emergency. Location: my home address. Time: 2:17 a.m. I looked at the clock. 2:18 a.m. That's impossible. Mark leaned closer to the monitor. There shouldn't be a call. There isn't. Then why is the system creating an incident? Before I could answer, my phone rang. My personal phone. The number on the screen was mine. I stared at it. My own number was calling me. Mark whispered, Don't answer. The phone kept ringing. I pressed decline. Immediately, it rang again. Same number. I declined it again. This time, a text appeared. You shouldn't have let him in. I looked toward the dispatch center entrance. Thomas was gone, but the wet footprints he had left behind were still there. They led across the floor, straight toward my station. I followed them with my eyes. They stopped beside my chair. Mark noticed them too. Nobody moved. We stood there silently. Then my headset beeped. The call answered itself. Emily whispered, He's at your house. I swallowed. Who? Thomas. I looked at Mark. That's impossible. Emily's voice became shaky. He wants you to come home. I asked, Why? She didn't answer. Instead, I heard a man's voice in the background. Thomas. Ethan. The voice sounded distant, almost like it was coming through a long tunnel. You need to remember. I leaned toward the headset. Remember what? Static. Then, the night you found me. My heart started beating faster. I never found you. Thomas laughed. You did. Pause. Then he said, you were the one who opened the basement door. The line went dead. I looked at Mark. Did I ever investigate 418 Miller Road? He didn't answer. Mark. He sighed. Yes. When? Before you worked here. Why don't I remember? Because you weren't supposed to. I felt a chill. What happened? Mark pulled a chair beside me. You were a police officer. I stared at him. What? Before you became a dispatcher. I shook my head. I've never been a police officer. You were. He opened another personnel file. My photograph appeared, but I looked younger. I was wearing a police uniform. The date was October 2015. I stared at the picture. That's not possible. Mark pointed at the name, Officer Ethan Cole. Then he showed me the incident report. 418 Miller Road Missing Child Investigation. My signature was at the bottom. Couldn't breathe. I don't remember any of this. You weren't supposed to. Why? Mark looked toward the clock. 2:19 a.m. Because after you went into that house. He stopped. What? You came back 3 days later. 3 days? Yes. Where was I? Mark looked at me. Nobody knows. I stared at the file. What happened to Emily? She disappeared. And Thomas? He disappeared later. And me? Mark's voice became quiet. You forgot everything. I looked at the photograph again. Something about it suddenly felt familiar. The house, the porch, the basement. Then I remembered a sound. A little girl crying. I closed my eyes. And suddenly, I was back there. October 17th, 2015. I was standing inside 418 Miller Road. My flashlight was shaking in my hand. Smoke filled the hallway. Someone was screaming downstairs. Emily. I was running toward the basement. Then I heard Thomas behind me. Ethan. I turned. He was standing at the top of the stairs. His face was covered in blood. He shouted, "Don't open that door." I remembered ignoring him. I remembered walking down the stairs. I remembered the basement door. And then, I remembered opening it. I opened my eyes. I was back in the dispatch center. Mark was staring at me. You remembered. I couldn't speak. Then the emergency phone rang. Everyone on the dispatch floor stopped moving. The screen displayed, "Caller, Ethan Cole." I stared at it. Mark whispered, "Don't answer." But the phone answered itself. My own voice came through, terrified, breathing heavily. "Ethan." I couldn't move. My voice continued, "If you're hearing this." Pause. Then, "Whatever you do, don't open the basement door." I looked at Mark. Then my own voice whispered, "Because Emily isn't trapped down there." The line went silent. A second later, one final sentence appeared on my monitor. "She's already out." I stared at the message on my monitor. She's already out. Nobody on the dispatch floor spoke. Mark looked at the screen for several seconds. Then he whispered, "Shut it down." "What?" "The system." He started unplugging cables from the workstation. I grabbed his arm. "Who is Emily?" He stopped. "You said she survived." I said I think she survived. "You know more than that." Mark looked around the dispatch floor. Then he lowered his voice. "Come with me." We walked into the equipment room. He closed the door behind us. There was a witness. To the fire? To Emily. I stared at him. "Who?" "Her mother." "Karen Miller?" Mark nodded. "She survived." I felt my stomach tighten. "But the report says she died." "Because that's what the county wanted everyone to believe." "Why?" Mark looked at me. "Because Karen said something nobody believed." "What?" He took out an old photograph. It showed Karen standing outside the burned house. Her face was badly bruised, but she was alive. The photograph was dated October 18th, 2015. The day after the fire. I stared at it. Where was this taken? At the hospital. She survived. For 3 days. What happened? Mark's expression darkened. She disappeared from her hospital room. I felt a chill. Disappeared. Security cameras showed her walking out at 2:17 a.m. Where did she go? Mark shook his head. Back to the house. I stared at him. The house had already burned down. I know. What happened? She walked into the ruins. And never came back. Silence filled the room. I looked at the photograph again. Karen was holding something. A small piece of paper. I zoomed in. There were 4 words written on it. She was never alone. I looked at Mark. What does that mean? He didn't answer. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. 1 new message. Ask him about room 217. I looked at Mark. His expression changed instantly. What? Room 217. He stepped backward. Who told you that? My phone. Mark shook his head. Don't go there. Why? Because that's where Karen was kept. At the hospital? Yes. I stared at him. Then why didn't you mention it? Because room 217 doesn't exist anymore. I felt my stomach drop. What happened to it? It was sealed. Why? Mark didn't answer. I stepped toward him. Mark, he finally whispered, because the nurses kept hearing a child crying inside. I felt a cold sensation run across my skin. Emily? Nobody knew. What happened to the room? They demolished that section of the hospital. And the crying? Mark looked at me. It continued. My phone vibrated again. Another message. Room 217 is where she learned your name. I stared at the words. Then something clicked. The woman's voice from my first call. The little girl. The messages. The house. Everything had started with my name. I looked at Mark. Emily knew me before I answered the call. He nodded. Yes. How? Mark looked away. You met her. I shook my head. I never met Emily. You did. When? At the hospital. I felt my chest tighten. What hospital? St. Vincent. I froze. That name felt familiar. A memory surfaced. A hospital hallway. Fluorescent lights. A little girl sitting alone on a bed. A nurse telling me, don't talk to her. I closed my eyes. I could almost see her. Gray sweater, bare feet, long dark hair. She looked at me and smiled. I opened my eyes. That's where I saw her. Mark nodded. 11 years ago. What was she doing there? Waiting. For what? Mark whispered. For you. The lights inside the equipment room suddenly went out. I heard a child's footsteps outside. Bare feet, slowly walking across the floor. Step, step, step. Then a little girl's voice came from the other side of the door. Mr. Cole? I looked at Mark. He put a finger over his lips. The voice came again. You remembered me. The doorknob slowly turned. I backed away. Then the voice whispered. Now remember what you did to me. The door opened. Nobody was there. Only a small gray sweater lay on the floor. Wet, covered in ash. I picked it up. Inside the collar was a hospital identification tag. I read it. Patient. Emily Miller. Aged 9. Room 217. Date. October 19th, 2015. I stared at the date. 3 days after the fire. Then I noticed something else. The attending officer's name was printed at the bottom. Officer Ethan Cole. My hands began shaking. I looked at Mark. Why was I investigating Emily at the hospital? He didn't answer. I turned the tag over. There was handwriting on the back. My handwriting. 1 sentence. I promised her I'd come back. Then the dispatch center's main alarm suddenly sounded. A new 911 call appeared. Caller, Emily Miller. Location, St. Vincent Memorial Hospital. And beneath it, room 217. Mark stared at the screen. I stared at him. Then he whispered, Ethan. That room was demolished 11 years ago. The call was still active. Caller, Emily Miller. Location, St. Vincent Memorial Hospital, room 217. I stared at the screen. Mark didn't move. Neither did anyone else. Finally, I whispered, "That's impossible." Mark looked at me. "I know. The room doesn't exist. It shouldn't." I picked up my headset. Mark grabbed my wrist. "Don't. She's calling us. That's exactly why you shouldn't answer." I looked at him. "Then what are we supposed to do?" He released my wrist. The headset beeped. The call answered itself. For several seconds, there was only static. Then I heard a hospital monitor. Beep, beep, beep. My breathing stopped. I knew that sound. I had heard it before, 11 years ago. Then a little girl's voice whispered, "Mr. Cole?" I closed my eyes. "Emily." A soft giggle. "You remembered. Where are you?" "Room 217. "There's no room 217. Silence. "Then, there is for me." The monitor beeped again. Beep, beep. Then another sound. A door opening. I heard footsteps. Someone walking across a hospital floor. I asked, "Emily, who's with you?" She whispered, "Nobody." Then a man's voice spoke in the background. My voice. "Don't tell him." I opened my eyes. Mark was staring at me. "Did you hear that?" He nodded. I looked at the monitor. "That's my voice." Mark didn't answer. The little girl whispered, "He always says that." "Who?" "You." I felt sick. "Emily, listen to me. I need you to tell me what happened in room 217. She was silent. Then, "You came to see me." A memory flashed through my mind. A hospital room. White walls. A small bed. Emily sitting beneath a blanket. I was standing beside her. She looked frightened. I remembered asking, "Where is your mother?" Emily had pointed toward the corner. There was nobody there. Then she said, "She's sleeping." I had looked toward the corner again and seen a woman standing there, Karen, but her eyes were completely black. I suddenly remembered stepping backward, Emily grabbing my hand and whispering, "Don't let her touch me." I opened my eyes. My hands were shaking. Mark was watching me. "You remember?" I nodded. "I saw Karen." Mark's face changed. "That's impossible. I saw her in the room. Karen was already missing." "I know." He stepped closer. "What else?" I tried to remember. The memory was broken, like pieces of a film. Emily crying. Karen standing in the corner. A nurse entering the room. Then the nurse screaming. Then, me running. I looked at Mark. "I left her." Mark didn't respond. "That's what happened." I swallowed. "I left Emily in that room." The voice on the headset suddenly became clearer. Emily whispered, "You promised you'd come back." I closed my eyes. "I tried." "No." Her voice became cold. "You forgot." The call disconnected. I removed the headset. The screen went black. Then every monitor on the dispatch floor changed simultaneously. A hospital floor plan appeared. I recognized it immediately. St. Vincent Memorial Hospital. The map zoomed in. Second floor. Then, room 217. But there was something strange. The room was marked in red, and next to it was a flashing warning. "Patient still inside." Mark stared at the screen. "That's not possible." I looked at him. "We need to go there." "No." "Why?" "Because the hospital demolished that wing. Then we'll find out what's there now." Mark shook his head. "You don't understand." He pointed at the map. "Room 217 isn't on the second floor anymore." I frowned. "What?" He zoomed in. The map changed. Room 217 appeared beneath the hospital. Level -2. My stomach dropped. "There is no level -2. Mark whispered. "There wasn't." Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. A single message appeared. "You left me underground." Another message arrived. "Now come finish what you started." I stared at the screen. Then the hospital map disappeared. One final message appeared. "Bring Thomas." I looked toward the empty dispatch center doorway. Wet footprints had appeared again. They began at the entrance and ended beside my chair. But this time there was something different. A trail of small footprints was beside them. Bare feet, a child's footprints. They led away from my station, toward the emergency exit. Mark whispered, "Ethan." I followed the footprints with my eyes. "Yeah." He stared at them. "They're leading us to the hospital." We left the dispatch center at 2:31 a.m. The rain had stopped, but the roads were still wet. Neither of us spoke during the drive. Mark kept both hands on the steering wheel. I kept looking at the clock. 2:37 a.m. 7 minutes had passed, but it felt much longer. Finally, I asked, "Why are we going to St. Vincent?" Mark didn't answer. "Mark," he sighed, "because that's where this started." "You mean Emily?" "No." He glanced at me. "You." I stared through the windshield. "What happened to me there?" "You were found unconscious." "After the fire?" 3 days after." "Where?" "Room 217. I felt my stomach tighten. "What happened before that?" Mark was silent. "I don't remember." "I know." He drove faster. "That's why they erased the records." "Who erased them?" "The hospital." "Why?" Mark looked at me. "Because you weren't the only person in that room." We reached St. Vincent Memorial Hospital at 2:49 a.m. The emergency entrance was almost empty. A single security guard sat behind the desk. When he saw Mark, he immediately stood. "You shouldn't be here." Mark walked past him. "We need access to the second floor." The guard shook his head. "Second floor is closed." "Since when?" "Since 2016. I looked at Mark. He didn't react. The guard noticed me. His face changed. He stared at me for several seconds, then whispered, "I know you." I felt cold. "No, you don't." He shook his head. "You were here before." Mark grabbed my arm. "We don't have time." We took the elevator. The doors closed. Mark pressed 2. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. Then the elevator display changed. -2. I stared at it. "Did you press that?" Mark slowly shook his head. The elevator began descending. Neither of us moved. -1. Then, -2. The doors opened. A dark hallway stretched in front of us. There were no lights, no signs, no hospital equipment, just old doors. Mark stepped out. I followed. He whispered, "This floor isn't on the hospital plans." I looked around. "Then what is it?" He didn't answer. We walked down the corridor. Every door had a number. 201, 203, 205, then 217. I stopped. The door was slightly open. A faint light came from inside. Mark grabbed my shoulder. "Ethan." "What?" "Don't go in." I looked at him. "We came here for Emily." "I know." "Then we go in." I pushed the door open. The room was exactly as I remembered. White walls, a small hospital bed, a heart monitor, a wooden chair beside the window, and a little girl sitting on the bed. Emily. She looked exactly 9 years old. Her feet were bare. She wore a gray sweater. She looked at me, then smiled. "You came back." I couldn't speak. Mark stood behind me. Emily looked at him. "Hello, Mark." His face went pale. "You remember me?" She nodded. "You were here too." Mark whispered. "No." Emily smiled. "You were the one who locked the door." I turned toward him. "What is she talking about?" Mark didn't answer. Emily pointed toward the closet. "He's still there." I looked at the closet. The door was closed. "Who?" She whispered. "Thomas." I opened it. Nothing. Just darkness. Then I heard breathing. Behind me. I turned. Mark was gone. The room was empty. Emily was still sitting on the bed. But now she wasn't smiling. She pointed toward the floor. "Look." I looked down. There was a trapdoor beneath the bed. I stared at it. "What's down there?" Emily whispered. "The first room." I pulled the bed aside. The trapdoor had a small metal handle. I grabbed it. Emily suddenly screamed. "Don't open it." I froze. Her eyes became completely black. She whispered, That's what you did last time. I stepped backward. The heart monitor began beeping faster. Beep, beep, beep. Then the room lights flickered. A man's voice came from the hallway. Ethan. I recognized it. Thomas. I turned toward the door. He was standing there, still wearing the firefighter uniform, still covered in soot. He looked directly at me. Then he said, "You weren't supposed to remember this room." I stared at him. "What happened here?" Thomas looked at Emily, then back at me. "You opened the door." "I don't remember." "You will." He stepped inside. Emily began crying. Thomas whispered, "She wasn't trapped here." I looked at the girl. "Then what was she doing?" Thomas's expression changed. "She was keeping it trapped." The heart monitor suddenly stopped. Flatline. Emily disappeared from the bed. The room went completely silent. Then the trapdoor beneath the bed slowly opened. Something underneath whispered, "Ethan." I stepped backward. Thomas grabbed my arm. "Don't look down." I stared at him. "Why?" He whispered, "Because whatever is underneath that door has your face." I didn't look down. Couldn't. Thomas's hand was still gripping my arm. The trapdoor remained open beneath the hospital bed. From the darkness underneath, I could hear breathing. Slow, deep, almost human. Then the voice came again. "Ethan." It sounded exactly like me. I looked at Thomas. "How do you know what's underneath?" He didn't answer. "Thomas," he finally whispered, "because I saw it." "When?" 11 years ago. I looked toward the empty bed. "Emily?" Thomas shook his head. "Emily wasn't the thing down there." "Then what was she?" He looked at the trapdoor. "The lock." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" "She was the only thing keeping it asleep." The voice beneath the floor laughed. It was my laugh. I felt sick. Thomas pulled me away from the opening. "We need to leave." I nodded. We turned toward the door. It wasn't there. The room had changed. The walls were longer, the ceiling higher, and where the door had been, there was now another hospital bed. On it was a man. He was lying completely still. His face was turned away from us. Thomas stopped. "Don't go near him." I stared at the bed. "Who is that?" Thomas whispered, "You." I looked at him. "What?" "That's what you looked like when we found you." I slowly approached the bed. The man turned his head. My face stared back at me. Same eyes. Same scar above the eyebrow. Same face. But the man on the bed was older. Much older. He looked exhausted. His eyes were open. He whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." I stepped away. Thomas grabbed me. "Don't listen." The man smiled. "Ethan." I stared at him. "Who are you?" He laughed softly. "I'm the part of you they left here." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" He looked at Thomas. "Ask him." Thomas didn't speak. The man continued. "Ask him what happened after you opened the door." I turned toward Thomas. "What happened?" He looked down. "You disappeared." "For how long?" 3 days. "Where was I?" Thomas whispered. "Down there." He pointed toward the trapdoor. I looked at the man on the bed. He smiled. "You came back without your memories." I felt dizzy. "Why?" "Because you gave them away." "To what?" He slowly sat up. His neck made a faint cracking sound. Then he whispered, "To me." The lights went out. I heard Thomas shout, "Run!" Something moved underneath the bed. Fast. I heard metal scraping against the floor. Then a hand came out from beneath the trapdoor. It looked exactly like mine. Thomas pulled me toward the wall. The hand grabbed the edge of the floor. Then another hand appeared. Then a face slowly emerged. My face. But the eyes were completely black. The thing looked at me and smiled. "You left me here." Couldn't breathe. Thomas screamed, "Don't answer it." The creature crawled out. It stood upright. It was wearing my old police uniform. The same uniform from the photograph. The same one I had supposedly worn 11 years ago. It looked at me, then said, "You promised you'd come back." I shook my head. "I don't remember." It smiled wider. That's why I kept calling. Suddenly, Emily appeared behind it. She was crying. Her eyes were normal again. She whispered, "Mr. Cole." I looked at her. "What?" She pointed toward the creature. "That's not you." The creature slowly turned its head toward her. Emily stepped backward. Then she whispered, "It's the reason everyone forgot." The creature lunged toward her. Thomas pushed me aside. "Run!" We ran through the hallway. Behind us, I heard Emily scream. Then Thomas shouted something. I turned. He was standing in the doorway. The creature had grabbed him. Thomas looked directly at me and screamed, "Don't let it learn your voice." The door slammed shut. I ran. At the end of the hallway, the elevator doors were open. I jumped inside. The doors closed. For several seconds, I could hear nothing. Then the elevator began moving upward. -2, -1, 1, 2. I breathed out. Then the display changed. 217. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I stepped out. I was back inside the hospital. But the hallway was completely empty. No nurses, no patients, no lights, only one sound. A telephone ringing from inside room 217. I looked at the room number, 217. I slowly opened the door. The phone was sitting on the wooden chair. It stopped ringing as soon as I entered. Then my own voice came from the receiver. "Ethan." I picked it up. My voice whispered, "You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes for what?" Silence. Then, before Thomas remembers who he really is, the line went dead. And behind me, someone whispered, "He already remembers." I froze. Someone had whispered behind me, "He already remembers." I slowly turned around. Nobody was there. The hallway outside room 217 was empty. I looked toward the elevator. The doors were closed. Then I heard footsteps coming from the far end of the corridor. Slow, uneven. Step, step, step. Thomas appeared from the darkness. His firefighter uniform was torn. His face was covered in blood. But he was walking normally. I stared at him. "Thomas." He stopped, then smiled. "You're still alive." I looked behind him. "Where's Emily?" His expression changed. "She never left." "What does that mean?" Thomas stepped closer. "She's been here the entire time." I felt a chill. "What is this place?" He looked around the hallway. "The hospital." "No." I shook my head. "This floor doesn't exist." Thomas smiled. "Not anymore." He walked past me and entered room 217. I followed. The room looked completely normal now. The trapdoor was gone. The hospital bed was neatly made. The monitor was switched off. Thomas sat on the wooden chair. "Close the door." I hesitated, then closed it. Thomas looked at me. "You want to know what happened in 2015? "Yes." "Then you need to remember everything." I nodded. He took a deep breath. "On October 17th, 2015, the Miller house caught fire." "I know." "No." He shook his head. "You know the story they gave you." He leaned forward. "The truth is different." I waited. "Emily didn't start the fire." "Then who did?" Thomas looked directly at me. "Karen." I stared at him. "Her mother." He nodded. "Karen discovered something in the basement." "What?" "Her husband had been hiding a room beneath the house." "A room?" Thomas nodded. "Not a normal room." He paused. "It was a place where he kept recordings." "Of what?" Thomas looked toward the floor. "Voices." I frowned. "Whose voices?" "People who had never been inside the house." I felt confused. Thomas continued. "Karen believed her husband was communicating with something." "What something?" "She didn't know." "Then what happened?" "She opened the basement door." I remembered the creature, the voice, my face. Thomas continued. "And that's when it learned about Emily." I felt a chill. "Why Emily?" "Because Emily could see it." "See what?" Thomas looked at me. "The thing living beneath the house." I remembered Emily's black eyes, her warning, the trapdoor, then the fire. Karen started it to destroy the room. But Emily survived. Thomas nodded. She escaped. Then why was she in room 217? Because you found her. I stared at him. I found her. You were the officer who responded. I slowly remembered. The hospital. Emily sitting on the bed. Her hand in mine. She had whispered, "Don't let it follow me." Thomas continued, "You brought Emily to St. Vincent. What happened afterward? You went back for the basement and opened the door." I closed my eyes. The memory came back. Smoke, heat, a wooden door, my hand on the handle, then darkness. Thomas spoke softly. "That's when it copied you." I opened my eyes. "What?" "It took your voice and my face. Eventually." I looked toward the empty bed. "So the thing downstairs wasn't you. What happened to the real me?" Thomas looked at me. "You came back, but I don't remember, because Emily made a deal." I stared at him. "What deal?" "She gave it your memories." I couldn't speak. Thomas continued. "She thought if it had your memories, it would stop hunting her." "Did it?" "No." "Why?" Thomas's eyes became darker. "Because it learned something." "What?" He whispered. "It learned how to leave." The room became completely silent. I felt my heart pounding. "Leave where?" Thomas looked at the door. "Anywhere." I suddenly understood. The calls, the dispatch center, my house, the photographs. The creature knew my name. It knew my voice. It had been following me. Thomas stood. "That's why you're here." "Why?" "Because it wants its memories back." I shook my head. "What happens if it gets them?" Thomas looked directly into my eyes. "Then it becomes you completely." Before I could respond, the hospital monitor turned on by itself. Beep, beep, beep. The screen showed a patient's name, Ethan Cole. Then another line appeared. Status: discharged, 2015. I stared at the screen. Thomas whispered, "Look at the date." I did. October 19th, 2015. The exact date I had disappeared. Then the monitor changed again. A second patient's name appeared. Ethan Cole. Status: admitted, today. I felt my blood run cold. What does that mean? Thomas didn't answer. The room door slowly opened. A little girl stood in the hallway. Emily. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. Then she whispered, "Mr. Cole." I stepped toward her. "What?" She pointed behind me. I turned. Thomas was gone. The chair was empty, and written across the hospital wall in fresh black letters were 4 words. He was never Thomas. I stared at the words on the wall. He was never Thomas. For several seconds, I couldn't understand what I was looking at. Then I heard Emily crying behind me. I turned. She was still standing in the hallway. Her small hands were trembling. "Emily." She looked at me. "He isn't Thomas." "Then who is he?" She shook her head. "I don't know what his name is." I stepped closer. "Then why does he look like Thomas?" Emily whispered, "Because that's the first face he learned." I felt a chill move through me. "The first face." She nodded. "It learns people." "How?" "It watches them." I looked toward the empty room. "How long has it been watching me?" Emily didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the wall. A photograph had appeared beneath the writing. I walked closer. It showed me, not the current me, the younger version of me from 2015. I was standing beside Emily, but there was someone behind us. A dark figure. His face was hidden. I stared at it. Then I noticed something. The figure was holding my hand. I stepped backward. "That's impossible." Emily whispered, "You don't remember." "What?" "You were already holding its hand." My breathing became shallow. I looked at my own hand in the photograph. Then another memory surfaced. A hospital hallway. I was walking beside Emily. Someone was holding my hand. I couldn't see his face, but I remember hearing him say, "Don't be afraid, Ethan." I closed my eyes. The voice. It was mine. My eyes opened. "Emily." She looked at me. Was that thing pretending to be me even then? She nodded. "Yes." Then why didn't I know? Because it wanted you to forget. I felt sick. Why? Emily looked down. Because you were the only one who could stop it. I stared at her. How? She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward room 217. I followed. The room had changed again. The hospital bed was gone. The walls were covered with photographs. Dozens of them. Some showed me. Some showed Emily. Some showed Thomas. Some showed people I didn't recognize. Every photograph had the same dark figure somewhere in the background. Watching. Waiting. I walked past them. Then I stopped. One photograph showed the Miller house. Another showed the dispatch center. Another showed my apartment. And the last one showed my bedroom, taken from inside the room. I stared at it. When was this taken? Emily whispered. Tonight. My heart dropped. I pulled out my phone. I had no missed calls, no messages. Then I noticed the time. 3:03 a.m. I had no idea how long we'd been inside the hospital. Emily pointed toward the photograph. Look, I did. There was someone standing beside my bed. A tall figure. His face was turned toward the camera. It had my face. I stepped away. It's at my house. Emily nodded. Yes. We need to leave. She shook her head. You can't. Why? Because this isn't the hospital anymore. I looked around. What? She pointed toward the hallway. The walls began changing. The hospital lights disappeared. The floor became old wooden boards. The walls became charred. The smell of smoke filled the air. I knew this place. 418 Miller Road. The house from 2015. The house that had burned down. But now we were standing inside it. Emily whispered, We're back. I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy. Then a voice called from above. My voice. Ethan. I froze. Emily grabbed my hand. Don't answer. The voice came again. Ethan, I know you're down there. I looked at Emily. What does it want? She whispered. You. Why? She looked into my eyes. Because you still have the one memory it couldn't take. What memory? Emily's face changed. She looked terrified. The memory of what happened in the basement. The footsteps stopped. Then something began walking down the stairs. One step, then another. I couldn't move. Emily squeezed my hand. When it reaches the bottom, I whispered, What? She looked at me. Don't look at its face. The figure reached the last step. I could see its shoes, then its legs, its hands, its body, finally, its face. I looked anyway, and my entire body went numb, because it wasn't wearing my face anymore. It was wearing Emily's face. The creature smiled. Then, in the little girl's voice, it said, You promised you'd come back. Emily screamed beside me, and the basement door behind us suddenly slammed shut. The basement door slammed behind us. Bang! Emily screamed. I turned toward the door, but it was already gone. Not locked, not closed, gone. Where the door had been, there was only a charred wooden wall. I looked at Emily. She was staring at the creature. It was still wearing her face. The same pale skin, the same dark hair, the same frightened eyes, but the smile wasn't human. Ethan. It spoke with Emily's voice. You left me here. I stepped backward. You're not Emily. The creature tilted its head. You know me. No. You remember me. Took one step forward. Emily grabbed my hand. Don't listen. The creature smiled. She doesn't want you to remember. I looked at Emily. What is it talking about? She shook her head. Nothing. The creature laughed. Ask her. I looked at Emily. What happened in the basement? She didn't answer. Emily. Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared. Of what? She whispered. Of you. I felt like I'd been punched. What? She looked at me. When you opened the door, you weren't alone. The creature stepped closer. Tell him. Emily shook her head. No. The creature's smile disappeared. Tell him what he did. The room suddenly changed. The burned walls disappeared. The basement became bright, clean, normal. I was standing in the basement again, but this time, I could see everything. I was younger, wearing my police uniform. Emily was standing beside me. Thomas was behind us, and the basement door was open. Something was inside. I couldn't see its face, but I heard my own voice. "Emily, stay behind me." She grabbed my hand. Then I heard another voice. My voice, from behind us. "Ethan." I turned. There were two of me standing in the basement. One beside Emily, one near the stairs. The younger me stared at the other. "What are you?" The second me smiled. "I'm you." Thomas raised his gun. "Don't move." The creature laughed. Then it suddenly grabbed Emily. I watched myself try to pull her away. Thomas fired. The shot hit the creature, but there was no blood. Instead, the creature smiled and whispered, "You can't kill something that doesn't belong to a body." The memory changed again. The fire started. Smoke filled the basement. Emily was screaming. Thomas was dragging me toward the stairs, and I was fighting him. "Let me go!" Thomas shouted. "She's already gone." I looked toward Emily. She was standing beside the creature, but she wasn't screaming anymore. She was calm. She looked directly at me, then whispered, "Remember me." The memory shattered. I fell to my knees. The basement returned. Emily was standing in front of me. The creature was gone. I looked at her. "You weren't trapped." She shook her head. "No, you were protecting me." She nodded. "From what?" She looked toward the darkness behind me, then whispered, "From yourself." I turned around. There was a mirror standing in the basement. I walked toward it. My reflection stared back. Then it smiled. I didn't. My reflection raised its hand. I didn't. Placed one finger against the glass. Then wrote something in the fogged surface. 3:17 a.m. I looked at Emily. "What happens at 3:17? She whispered. "That's when you disappeared." I looked at the clock on my phone. 3:16 a.m. 1 minute. Emily grabbed my arm. "We have to go." "Where?" "Anywhere." The mirror cracked. Crack. A black line spread across the glass. Then another. Then dozens. Something began pushing from the other side. My reflection pressed its face against the glass and whispered, "1 minute." The glass shattered, covered my face. When I lowered my hands, Emily was gone. Only her gray sweater remained on the floor. I picked it up. Inside the collar was a small piece of paper. I unfolded it. There was one sentence written in my handwriting. "If Emily disappears, don't follow her." I stared at the note. Then I heard a little girl's voice behind me. "Too late." I turned. Emily was standing at the basement stairs, but her eyes were completely black. She smiled, and behind her stood 3 identical versions of me. There were 3 of me standing behind Emily. All 3 looked exactly the same. Same face, same police uniform, same expression, but none of them moved. They simply stared at me. Emily stood between them. Her black eyes reflected the faint light coming from somewhere above the basement. I whispered, "Which one is real?" Emily didn't answer. One of the 3 men smiled. "Me." Another spoke immediately. "No, me." The third one whispered, "You already know." I felt dizzy. They all sounded like me. Emily slowly stepped forward. "Don't listen to them." I looked at her. "How do I know you're really Emily?" She looked down, then quietly said, "Because I remember what you forgot." The 3 copies suddenly stopped smiling. Emily pointed at the one standing in the middle. "That's him." The middle copy tilted its head, then smiled. "Good girl." Emily grabbed my hand. "Run." We sprinted up the basement stairs. Behind us, the 3 copies began following. Not running, walking, slowly, like they knew we couldn't escape. We reached the first floor. The burned house was changing around us. The walls shifted. The furniture appeared and disappeared. For a moment, I saw the dispatch center, then the hospital, then my apartment, then the burned house again. Everything was becoming mixed together. I heard one of the copies behind us. Ethan. Another voice answered from somewhere upstairs. Ethan. Then another. Ethan. Soon. My name was coming from everywhere. Emily pulled me toward the front door. We're almost there. The door appeared in front of us. I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't open. Emily screamed, "Don't!" I stopped. "What?" She pointed at the door. There was a small window in it. Through the glass, I could see the dispatch center. My desk, my chair, my headset. Everything was normal. I could even see Mark standing beside my workstation. He was looking directly at me. Then he raised his hand and waved. I stared at him. "Mark!" Emily shook her head. "That's not Mark." The figure outside smiled. Then the glass began cracking. Crack, crack. A voice came through the door. My voice. "Ethan, open it." I stepped backward. The voice became louder. "You don't belong here," Emily whispered. "He's trying to make you choose." "Choose what? Which world is real?" I looked around. The house, the hospital, the dispatch center. None of them made sense anymore. Then I remembered something. A sentence from my own recording. "Don't let him learn your voice." I looked at Emily. "If it has my voice." She nodded. "It can become you." I took a deep breath. Then I did something I hadn't done all night. I stopped listening. I closed my eyes and said nothing. The voices began screaming. My name, Emily's name, Mark's name, Thomas's name. Everything became noise. Then, silence. I opened my eyes. I was standing inside the dispatch center. The lights were on. The other operators were working. The clock above the wall showed 3:18 a.m. Mark was standing beside me. "Ethan?" I stared at him. "Where's Emily?" Mark frowned. "Who?" My heart sank. "Emily Miller." He looked confused. "Ethan, there's no Emily here." I looked toward my desk. My headset was sitting exactly where I'd left it. I walked over. There was a small gray sweater beside it. I picked it up. Mark stared at me. "Where did you get that?" I didn't answer. Then my computer screen turned on. One new incident appeared. Call received. 3:17 a.m. Location, 418 Miller Road. Caller, unknown. I opened the recording. Static. Then my own voice. Very quiet. "If you're hearing this." I leaned closer. "Don't trust Mark." I slowly looked up. Mark was standing across the room. He was staring at me. His face was completely expressionless. Then my headset beeped. A little girl's voice whispered, "Mr. Cole." I froze. "You made it out." I whispered, "Emily?" "Yes." "Where are you?" She paused. Then, "I'm standing behind you." I slowly turned around. Nobody was there. Then she whispered one final sentence. "But don't worry." Pause. "The thing behind you isn't me." The lights went out. And in the darkness, someone whispered directly into my ear, "You finally remembered." The lights went out. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. Then someone whispered directly into my ear, "You finally remembered." I didn't turn around. Couldn't, because I knew the voice. It was mine. The same voice I'd heard on the phone. The same voice from the old recordings. The same voice that had warned me not to open the basement door. I slowly reached for the emergency flashlight beneath my desk. My fingers found it. I switched it on. The dispatch floor was empty. Every chair was abandoned. Every computer was displaying the same thing. 3:17 a.m. I looked at the wall clock. 3:18 a.m. Then I heard a chair scrape across the floor behind me. I turned. Nobody. Another chair moved. Then another. One by one, the chairs around the dispatch room began turning toward me. I backed away. My headset beeped. I didn't touch it. Emily's voice came through. "Mr. Cole." I grabbed the headset. "Emily, where are you?" "I'm not Emily." I froze. The voice continued. "I never was." My stomach dropped. "What?" "She was the first one." "First what?" Silence. Then, "The first person it copied." I looked at the gray sweater beside my desk. Suddenly made sense. Emily wasn't the thing controlling the calls. She had been the first victim. The creature had taken her face, her voice, her memories, and eventually, mine. I whispered, "Where is the real Emily?" The voice on the headset became very quiet. "You already know." I looked toward the dark hallway. Room 217. The basement. The house. Everything connected. I understood. Emily had never been trapped in the basement. She had been trapped inside the thing itself. And every time it copied someone, it buried another person inside. Thomas, Karen, me, Emily. They weren't dead. They were still inside it. Watching, waiting, trying to get out. I looked at the computer screen. A new message appeared. Open the door. I knew which door. The emergency exit. I walked toward it. Behind me, footsteps began following. I didn't turn around. The footsteps got closer. Then I heard Thomas. Ethan. I kept walking. Karen. Please. I kept walking. Emily. Mr. Cole. I reached the door. My hand touched the handle. Then my own voice whispered, "If you leave, you'll take us with you." I stopped. "What?" Silence. Then, "That's what you promised." I remembered. The basement. 2015. I hadn't escaped. I had made a deal. The creature had agreed to let me leave if I carried it with me. That's why I had forgotten. That's why it followed me. That's why every few years someone received the call. It wasn't trying to find me. It was trying to come home. I opened the emergency door. Cold night air rushed inside. For the first time, I saw the world outside. Cars, streetlights, rainwater on the pavement. Normal, real. I stepped outside. The door slammed shut behind me. I stood there for several seconds. Then my phone vibrated. One new message. "Thank you." I stared at it. Another message appeared. "You brought us out." I slowly looked back at the dispatch center. Every window on the building was dark. Then, one light turned on. Then another, until every window was glowing. I could see silhouettes standing behind the glass. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all staring at me. And in the center window stood Emily. She raised one hand. I raised mine. Then she smiled. For the first time, it looked like a real smile. The silhouettes disappeared. The lights went out. I thought it was over. I really did. Until I got home. I entered my apartment at 4:06 a.m. Everything was exactly where I'd left it. I locked the door, checked every room. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. No strange photographs. Nothing. I finally sat on my bed. My hands were still shaking. I looked at my phone. No messages. No missed calls. I closed my eyes. For the first time in 11 years, I felt safe. Then my phone rang. I opened my eyes. Unknown number. I stared at the screen. It rang again. I didn't answer. It stopped. A few seconds later, a voicemail appeared. I played it. There was silence. Then a little girl's voice. "Emily, Mr. Cole." I stopped breathing. Then she whispered, "You forgot one thing." The recording ended. I stared at my bedroom door. Something was standing on the other side. I could see the shadow beneath it. 2 feet. Small feet. A child's feet. Then the shadow slowly changed. The feet became larger, then larger, until they looked exactly like mine. My phone vibrated one final time. A text appeared. "You didn't bring us out." Another message appeared immediately after it. "We brought you out." I looked toward the bedroom door. The handle began turning, slowly, and just before the door opened, I heard my own voice whisper from the other side, "Your shift isn't over yet."